All right, hello everyone. I am back with another video, and today I want to continue with My Book of Bible Stories. And today I'm talking about Job, and it is the number 26 story in the My Book of Bible Stories that was published in 1978 by the Jehovah's Witnesses. And it was the book that was introduced to me when I was 9 years old in 1979. And from my understanding, I'm not sure. I was going to say maybe it's the first book, but I haven't bothered to check to see if they made a book prior to this that was just for children and children only. And I still feel that there are stories that are completely inappropriate for children and that aren't healthy for their emotional and spiritual state because they are adult conversations. And they simplify it way too much, to like about 6-7 paragraphs, and then leave it at that. And then of course they cite the scriptures, but if you read the scriptures that go along with it and then you're reading it as a child, for instance, the Job story was a story about the fact that Satan had a conversation with God about Job, and God was bragging on Job, saying that Job was his most faithful servant. And then Satan said the only reason he's faithful is because of all that you've given him. And then the Bible story book does speak about how he lost everything. He lost his children. And I'll just read the paragraph for what Satan did. Because God said, just make sure you don't kill him. He said, so it says, so Jehovah said, go ahead, take them away. Do all the bad things you want to Job. We will see if he curses me. Only be sure that you do not kill him. So God gave Satan permission to do everything. And in the end, the first thing he says is, we'll see if he curses me. So it was all about him and not his faithful servant, Job, and harm coming to his faithful servant. First, Satan had men steal Job's cattle and camels, and his sheep were killed. Then he killed his sons and daughters in a storm. Next, Satan struck Job with terrible sickness. Job suffered very much. That is why Job's wife told him, curse God and die. But Job would not do it. Also, 3 false friends came and told him he had lived a bad life, but Job kept faithful. This made Jehovah very happy, and afterward he blessed Job, as you can see in the picture. He healed him from his sickness. Job had 10 more beautiful children and twice as many cattle, sheep, and camels as he had before. Will you always be faithful to Jehovah like Job? If you are, God will bless you too. So one would have to suffer. To me, it's teaching definitely the wrong message. That quietly suffer in silence. You don't understand why. Job was never told that Satan was allowed to do what he did. Job was never informed that this was a conversation between Satan and the God that he was faithful to, and that the God that he was faithful to allowed him to lose everything and allowed him to be harmed by Satan, the adversary, the accuser, who said that I can make Job not be faithful. And so God basically said, do your worst. This is someone that he said he is, Job was a faithful man who obeyed Jehovah, which is obedience. And he obeyed him. And so to me, with a child, it creates this, well, if I'm faithful to Jehovah and I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing, then what is going on? What is wrong? Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to my family? And then I'm to endure this and go through this, and eventually I will receive help and everything will be better. But imagine as a child, if you're going through something and you don't see an end to it, and you're wondering why you haven't been saved or rescued like Job was. And to me, it's not good for their emotional health or spiritual health, and that it is creating this unnecessary fear of divine punishment. Because Just like Job didn't know it was happening. The child may name, but I might not know what's happening. I might not know that things are happening to me because God said it's okay for Satan to do it to me. Because it's always Satan that's doing it in these Bible story books with kids. It's always the bad angel that's always causing havoc. And then on top of the havoc being caused, God's allowing the havoc. And I mean, even as an adult, it's hard for me to accept the fact that God was like, yeah, sure, go ahead and let it happen. And then it's okay in the end because he gave him everything back in double fold. So it's okay that it happened, but I never knew that you were the one behind it. One of the ones behind it, which doesn't make it okay. And then the whole thing that they're like, it's integrity. It's Job's integrity. And he did not deserve it at all. He was mourning and in pain and suffering. His own family, his wife turned against him. His friends turned against him, saying, you must have done something wrong. God only does this to someone who has sinned. So not only that, the mental anguish of knowing you're innocent and then you're being accused, publicly accused. Everyone knows publicly what has happened to you, and everyone knows the God that you worship. And this is happening. And in their mind, your God is doing it. No one says Satan's doing it. Your God is doing it. So I really think this, again, is another story that's inappropriate. Inappropriate for us adults and inappropriate for children, because it teaches us that we are to be faithful and suffer through it, even if we're suffering when we're not guilty. I have to admit, again, Job's story was never a story that I agreed with at all in any way, shape, or form. And it is a story that I feel should not be in the children's book at all. And so it also, one more point that I wanted to make with the Job story is that that God's always saying that he will protect you and that you're important, to him. And in this case, his faithful servant Job did not receive his protection. And he did not receive his protection all because it's like Satan goaded him. Like, you are the supreme being. You are the creator of all. You are, as you say, you're the God, and there's no other God that is like you, and you have all the power. So how can an angel that you created convince you to harm your faithful servant? So like in Psalms 90, because I was like, well, is there any scripture where God just says, I will make sure you're protected. You don't have to worry about it? Because you're going to read this story to your children through the scriptures also, because the scriptures are attached for you to read. So in those scriptures, it's saying that Satan allowed it to happen. That God allowed it to happen. And it's like, well, is God ever going to protect me from Satan? Is there ever going to be a point where I'm protected? Because most of these stories, Satan is the bad guy. He's the bad angel. And God didn't do anything to protect his people from Satan's tactics. Right? So I said, well, is there any scriptures? So I looked up Psalms 91, and it's 1-3. Anyone dwelling in the secret place of the Most High will procure himself lodging under the very shadow of the Almighty One. I will say to Jehovah, you are my refuge and my stronghold, my God in whom I will trust. For he himself will deliver you from the trap of the birdcatcher. So this scripture is one that they use a lot, saying that Jehovah is your refuge. He is someone that will deliver you from the birdcatcher and from the pestilence causing adversaries, right? So that's exactly what Satan did to Job, but yet he didn't protect Job. Which some people say it's like a bet. He didn't protect Job. And then the scripture, it says, no weapon formed against you will prosper, which is in Isaiah 54:17. And any weapon, whatever that would be formed against you, will have no success. And any tongue at all that will rise up against you in the judgment of you will condemn. This is the hereditary possession of the servants of Jehovah, and their righteousness is from me, is the utterance of Jehovah. So Jehovah is saying that he will not allow anyone to speak ill against you, which is exactly what Satan did, but yet he didn't stop Satan from doing it. And then he also said that this is your heredity, was what you're going to inherit as a servant of Jehovah. So a faithful person is supposed to be protected by Jehovah. But yet he did not protect or basically shut Satan down for saying what he said, because he knew Job well enough to say he was faithful and said he was the only faithful person living at that time. And which I've mentioned before, he knows a person's heart. And so since you know that person's heart, you already knew that Job wasn't going to speak against you. And since you knew he was not going to be unfaithful, why would you allow him to go through that? I have another scripture here, and I was just trying to track it down real quick because I didn't write it down. Oh, so this is in 2 Thessalonians 3:3. But the Lord is faithful, and he will make you firm and keep you from the wicked one. So this is a scripture where he himself will protect you. And this is in 2 Thessalonians 3:3. But he did not protect Job. He just told Satan not to kill him. So that wasn't even in a sense of protection. That was just Satan had a limit, which is not a form of protection. So the Job story never sat well with me, and I really don't think it should be in a children's book either, because like I said before, I think it creates emotional harm, spiritual harm, and sets up a precedent for where the child's going to feel like, if I'm going through something, how do I not know Satan's causing it? 2, how do I not know that God, low-key, is behind it also through Satan? And then 3, I'm a faithful servant of God, so why aren't I being protected? Like it's stated in the scriptures, that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Because Satan prospered. He did everything he could to that man, but kill him off, close to death. So again, I think this is a story that should not be in a children's book, and a children's Bible story book. And thank you for listening, and I will be back with another story.